They used to tell a different story about electronic arts. A bright beginning, a pledge to treat creators as artists, a company named for electricity and the pulse of play. That story is true enough if you read the early pages. Trip Hawkins, in 1982, a young evangelist who believed games were not factories grist but canvases, who wanted a new industry to bow to imagination. But every bright origin has a shadow. This is the other story, the quieter, colder tale of how that ideal grew into an empire and how the things that made it great became, for many players, reasons to grieve. Picture the 1980s and early 1990s like a studio lit by halogen, bold faces, risky bets, imprints and insertions into fledgling genres. EA signed audacious developers and pushed games toward narrative and spectacle. On the shelves, a different promise formed. Sports could be made real, close enough to touch. John Madden football became the first steady heartbeat. EA learned how to translate roar and ritual into pixels. That franchise taught the company a lesson that would guide every choice after. People will pay to feel like they are present at a moment of sport, even if it is only a simulated one. FIFA came in 1993 as FIFA International Soccer, a name tethered to the sport's gatekeepers, to national anthems and crests. The license was not just legal permission, it was legitimacy. Fans recognized kits and tournaments, and that recognition sealed the game with trust. Over the next decade, the series did what large machines do. It grew. FIFA 96 and FIFA 98 pushed the engines, adding teams and features. Presentation improved, realism deepened, and the sport became a reliable altar for millions. Meanwhile, another register was being tuned. Konami's Pro Evolution Soccer lured purists with its deep simulation and tactile ball physics. For a while, PES was the philosopher's choice, the version that whispered authenticity. EA answered by buying more and polishing more. Licensing deals stretched to leagues and clubs that felt to shoppers like ownership. The brand ate the field until official badges and club names were, for most players, indistinguishable from the real thing. Then 2009 came like a new law in a quiet town. Ultimate Team arrived as downloadable content in FIFA 09. At first, an oddity, a collectible diversion. It let players open packs and collect cards, assemble dream squads. But beneath the glitter of rare cards and celebratory videos, a different economy took root. The mode was a pleasure loop engineered to keep players opening packs, repeating a small ritual for the chance of an ecstatic pull. The twist, the slow poison, was the bridge from play to payment. You could speed the ritual with cash. What began as a joyful randomness soon mapped precisely and lucratively to human desire. By the mid-2010s, Ultimate Team wasn't just a mode, it was a machine. It became a billion-dollar stream that altered EA's heartbeat. When a single part of a company generates that much income, priorities warp, budgets bend toward what could be sustained and monetized week after week. Live service features, in-match currencies, time-limited events with flashing icons, and countdown timers. The games began to pulse less like crafted artifacts and more like platforms that existed to be visited, spent in, and left with new purchases in a pocket. That shift brought something like a forensic sadness. Where iteration once meant a fresh mechanic or a daring storytelling mode, iteration increasingly meant a new promotion or the latest seasonal pack. The wins were not gone. FIFA 17's leap onto the Frostbite engine and the addition of a narrative campaign called The Journey proved EA could still surprise, could still pursue artistry. But these felt like exceptions on a long ledger of small, serviceable changes. Players who remembered the feeling of opening a new experience found themselves opening card packs instead. The rise of streamers and content creators lit both ends of that candle. Pack openings became theater. One lucky pull could trigger a viral spike and a buying rush. One high-profile streamer's praise could move millions. The visibility was intoxicating and corrosive. The same platforms that celebrated the games amplified their failures. Server outages, lag, unfair matchmaking. The internet kept a ledger as well as a pulse. Fans recorded every misstep and in doing so, made private frustration public. Technical fragility felt like betrayal. FIFA's online modes demand engineering, stable servers, fair matchmaking, minimal latency for many players. those foundations looked neglected. Matches that should have been a test of skill became lotteries of connection. Tournaments and community events arrived with the promise of spectacle, but too often stumbled on infrastructure. When the platforms designed to bring people together broke, they did so in plain sight and with a crowd to watch. Licensing, which had once been a moat protecting the series, took on a different tone in the 2020s. Public bargaining over the FIFA name became a parable for how business and culture can divorce. Negotiations with the sport's governing body frayed, and in 2022 they collapsed. EA lost the right to say FIFA on the box. FIFA 23 was the last to carry that name. The split was more than corporate theater. It was a symbolic unmooring. Players asked themselves, was the badge the point, or was it the thing underneath? EA answered with a rebrand in 2023, EA Sports FC. The label changed, but the modes and clubs largely stayed. If the name was a contract between the sport and the studio, its dissolution felt like a breakup everyone had to watch. Around the same time, whispers about a $55 billion purchase of EA by the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, stories that bent toward fear about who would own the cultural icons players cared about. Rumors are contagious, they spread quickly, and they leave residue. It matters to many that as of now, EA remains a public company and that such a direct acquisition did not occur publicly. Still, the mere possibility, but the idea of control slipping to unseen hands, fed anxieties about censorship, influence, and the integrity of content. For a fan base already straining with disappointment, fear is a thin, comfortable companion. When you put all these threads together, the licensing wars, the relentless monetization, the server failures, the rumors of ownership, the visible focus on extracting revenue, the picture feels like a masoned edifice with a foundation slowly sinking. That structure stands on a truth that is both business and human. When a mode sustains billions, the corporation's incentives align to protect that mode. The consequence can be a narrowing of imagination, less attention to single-player depth, less appetite for risky experimental design, and a steady drumbeat of promotions that reward spending over mastery. Players reacted in the only power they had. Communities grew louder, some votes were quiet, declining purchases, giving time to indie studios that felt more generous. Others were visible and enraged. Petitions, public complaints, social media revolts. For those who remembered the first ethos that game makers are artists and that players are people with affection, not ATM machines, the conversation became mournful. The gratitude for hours of play was complicated by a sense of being manipulated, of affection, twisted toward a transactional relationship. And yet the games persist. EA's financials don't lie. The company's revenues have been multi-billion-dollar affairs for years. Their sports franchise still reaches tens of millions. There are players who find joy in trade-offs that others despise. The collectors who savor each ultra-rare card. The creators who craft content that gives life to the modes. The casual players who enjoy new kits and kits-only tournaments. The community is not monolithic, and grief in it is uneven. So the sadness here is not merely nostalgia for a pristine past, but for a set of ideals that feel like they have been repurposed. Trip Hawkins' early conviction that games should be respected as art and creators honored smells now like a relic passed down an industrial chain. Goodwill is a fragile thing. It is earned small. For players who loved the idea of EA as a place that championed boldness and experiment, the company's choices in the last decade read as choices to prioritize predictability and quarterly results. There is, however, a sliver of possible redemption. Markets change. Competitors and indies can prod large publishers toward different behaviors. Regulation over loot boxes and gambling-like mechanics is increasing in some countries. Scrutiny might force transparency and better alignment between monetization and value. Players still hold a currency that companies notice: time and money. When those withdraw, companies look again. The question is whether the company will respond with genuine structural changes, investing in server reliability, rebalancing content teams toward innovation, and making monetization that rewards play and skill rather than just impatience. Until then, many watch with a kind of quiet mourning. When a franchise is both companion and corporation, its missteps become personal. The stadium lights in FIFA and EA Sports games keep glowing, but for some they illuminate empty seats. The music plays, but there is a hollow underneath, a sensitivity to the ways corporate choices can hollow out the things people love. The final image is both simple and stark. A stadium at night, lights blazing, digital crowds roaring into silence when the servers drop, back animations glitter like fireworks, ephemeral, bright, and ultimately consumable. In the quiet, the founder's word that game makers are artists echoes like an anthem for what might still be reclaimed. The question isn't whether EA can earn back trust. The question is whether the company will choose to build day by day commitments that feel honest to the players who kept coming back. Until that choice is made and is seen to be made, the story will be one of greatness laced with grief, a story that, in the hands of a different kind of leadership, might have remained a celebration instead of becoming a cautionary tale.